I am Max Samuel Baumring, member of a four-member family. I am named after my grandfather, Max Samuel, or Moshe Shmuel in Hebrew, who is my father's father. I also had a brother named Willi, who changed his name to Ze'ev in Israel. I also had a baby boy born, stillborn. In fact, when I was about 12 or so, I know nothing about that one. My father was Leo Baumring. That's Germanized version of Leibel, which is little lion. My mother was Sala Flank. The Hebrew name is Sarah, but the Polish name is Sala. That's what she was known as, Sala. I was born in a town called Düsseldorf in Germany on the Rhine. The majority of my father's family, and my mother's family for that matter, all lived in Cologne, where we moved to in 1929 or 30. I went to school in Düsseldorf for the first 2 or 3 years of my life, before we transferred to Cologne, where there was a Jewish school, to which I went to, and so did my brother. I did quite well in the German school in Düsseldorf. My brother didn't do so wonderfully well, but he did sufficient to be promoted each year that went by. When I was little, go on. I was going to tell you a bit more, then you can ask questions.
All right, go on then.
When I was little, when I was 5 or 6, my father had a business selling and buying recycled stuff. That was paper, bones, metal, textiles of all kinds. He employed a number of women who used to sort the various textiles into the groups in which they were cotton or rayon, but because in those days there was no nylon or anything like that. Well, rayon there certainly was, wool there was as well. And my mother used to go down occasionally to help. It was like a big cellar and a big open area behind it. From what I remember, it was only about 5 or 6 at the time, maybe a little older. And eventually...
Where did he get the bones from?
People used to buy them in the street. All the stuff was collected by people who went to people's homes and houses and shouted any rags and bones. And they used to come and sell to him, who he in turn sold to the big factories.
So it would be the kind of remains of the clothes that they had, and the bones that they had.
We used to have rag and bone people in England too. You must remember them.
I don't.
Used to get ice cream or something, money for ice cream when you sold them stuff.
Oh right.
When you were little, and that was a big business. Germany was always much more orientated for recycling here.
I think it
so
still
paper
is.
was quite a big item. Bones weren't all that big an item. Bones used to be sold to factories making glue. But nowadays most of the glue is artificial, so bones no longer wanted. But what happens in Germany now, of course, I no longer know. And I know that my father bought all sorts of metal. And just as a sideline, as interesting sideline, whoever buys metal on this sort of basis, at some stage or other, he's likely to get sold to him metal which is illegally come by. Possibly lead or so. Might have been stolen from anywhere. That being the case, my father knew every policeman in Düsseldorf, in the part of Düsseldorf where we lived. And on Thursday night, he used to have to take them all out for drinks. My mother got so upset by this because he used to come home after the end of his session. He was possibly drunk, or he certainly wasn't very far away from being drunk. And she begged him and she pleaded with him. So eventually he gave up this business. And when we moved to Cologne, eventually we moved to Cologne. I'm not quite sure why this was, whether he gave up this business because there was a textile business was more profitable or whatever it was. But he did give it up. And then there's something else I seem to remember. Possibly the early part of my life in Cologne. My father was in textiles. Whether he was in partnership with someone or not, I don't know. Possibly with Bernard, who was my mother's second husband.
It's quite funny actually that you went into textiles yourself then, isn't it?
No, not really, because textile was a Jewish trade. Because in my generation, not so much from my father's generation. If you came from Polish or Russian Jewish background, you didn't go to work for anybody else. You worked for yourself.
Oh, right.
And in order to do that, that's why a lot of the Jewish people went to Rag and Bones in London.
Because they could be
so
their
much
own.
so.
They
Yeah,
could be
they
their
could
own
be.
boss.
They used to go around the streets. They did their own whatever, you know. And eventually they built themselves up into something a bit bigger, a bit better. This, in fact, what happened to my family.
Would you say that was like the working classes, and then you'd get
No, that was the very low middle classes, possibly earning less than the working classes, but they were working for themselves. They didn't work for anybody else.
Right, I see.
You know.
Yeah.
And in London, a lot of people, in order to do this, became taxi drivers. So when I came to England in 1939, there were a lot of Jewish taxi drivers in London. A lot of Jewish taxi drivers. Because you could earn enough money to buy your own taxi in time, and then at least you had a good living.
Yes, yeah.
You had to work hard, but you had a good living.
Yes, yeah. It's the first step to independence.
That is, well, there was more in Düsseldorf. I mean, what else can I tell you?
Well, what I want to know is, what was your first memory?
My first memory is being lost.
Being lost? In Düsseldorf?
In Düsseldorf. I must have been 2 or 3.
Yeah.
An old lady used to come occasionally. Well, my mother used to take me for walks. And this time an old lady came and took me for a walk in a park in Düsseldorf. I can't remember which one. There was a hill. And I said, I go up the hill, I come down the other side, and you'll be at the other side.
Yeah.
I went up the hill, went down the other side, and there was no old lady there.
And were you lost already?
I was lost. And eventually, the next thing I remember is being in a police station.
Oh right.
And
were they quite sympathetic in those
they
days?
phoned or went to my father, and my father came in the evening to pick me up.
Yeah.
But eventually, I wasn't sure whether I could speak or was afraid to speak or what.
It's okay.
But anyway, they eventually told him my name, and they came and I'd fetched my father, phoned him. I'm not sure whether we had a phone or not, probably didn't.
And how old were you? About 2 or 3?
About 2 or 3. So it must have been 22.
But you knew.
22 or 23.
But you knew your name.
Well, I'm not sure. I must have done eventually when I was scared. I know I peed myself. That I do know. I remember that it was wet. And my father picked me up on a bicycle, and he took me home on a bicycle.
Oh.
So this must have been 1923 or 1924, something like that.
Yes, yeah.
I do remember that. I also remember I couldn't have been much older than that. An old man coming to the house in Düsseldorf, because we didn't have a flat properly. In those days after the war, many German people didn't get proper living accommodation. So my father rented 2 rooms or 3 rooms from a Jewish couple in Düsseldorf, where actually we both, Steve and I, were born. A place called Waldstraße. I've seen it since. It's now quite a narrow street, and I don't think there's any traffic allowed in there now. Quite close to the River Rhine.
What sort of place was it then? 2-bedroom flat, you said? Yeah?
Wasn't a flat as such, it was single rooms.
Oh, right.
In the back house of, we didn't have a proper flat as such. But then we moved away from there to a place called Concordia Straße in Düsseldorf, and there we had a nice flat with a big garden.
Oh, right, yeah.
That, but in those days that my father had this rag and bone business.
So was he making quite a good living from the rag and bone
I would
business?
assume so, darling. I would assume so.
Must have built up a lot of contacts as well.
But it couldn't have been all that big, because he wouldn't have given up the business quite that easily. As I'm told he did,
Well, maybe he felt he was sailing a bit close to the wind legally.
That is partly it, and I'm told he probably was told that textiles are a much better thing. And he dealt with a number of people, and it's a strange thing, by a strange coincidence, I've got 2 names in my memory who must have been wholesale customers of my father in the textile field. What he did, I do not know.
Yeah.
And then there must have been Poles, because their names were Matze Gemba and Pendy Jacek. Now I remember this from 60-odd years ago. These 2 names.
Yeah.
Matze Gemba and Pendy Jacek.
It's more than 60 years, it's 70 years,
It's 70 years, yes.
Yeah.
70 years ago.
Yeah.
I remember nearly 3/4 of a century.
Yes, yeah.
These two, I don't know, these two names I seem to remember. When I spoke to my mother about it after the voyage, she remembered the names too.
So he dealt a lot with the Polish community?
Well, my father was a member of the Polish Jewish community. He was himself an immigrant. But he came with his parents.
Oh, right.
He wasn't born in Germany, he was born in Poland.
I see.
He was born in Wiesnitz in Poland,
Yeah.
which is not far from Bochnia, which is the main center in the area is Krakow.
Yeah.
So was my mother. They were both born in Galicia.
So where did they meet?
In Cologne.
In Cologne. Oh, right.
My father was brought to Cologne with his father and what was already alive of his family, because some of the children were born later on.
Oh, right.
He still went to school in Cologne, my father, for at least 2 or 3 years. Because you know in Germany, school year was from 6 to 14.
Yeah.
The compulsory school year. And I still had 2 teachers, or possibly 3, of the teachers who taught him in the Jewish school in Cologne.
Yeah. Oh, right. Oh. So do you know why they left Poland?
They were starving alive, darling. They were starving alive in Germany for quite a while, until the boys grew up.
So when did they leave? They must have left at the end of the last century.
No, they left early this century. I could probably look up and see when my father was born.
If you were born in 21, how old was he when you were born?
My father had been a POW in Russia, came back to Germany in 1918. He met my mother, who was a friend of one of his sisters.
Oh, right, yeah.
Tante Marley. She was a friend of Tante Marley.
Yeah.
And she used to come up to the house there, and my grandfather, whom I never knew, used to say to her, "You wait, Sura. I have a good son. When he comes back from being a prisoner of war, he'll be a good husband for you."
Matchmaking, eh?
This is one of the stories I was told,
yes,
you know.
Yeah.
This, I'm giving you this one here so that you get whatever the bits of information there is to be had. You know, you can then put that into any way you want.
Some sort of order, yeah.
My father was one of 10. There were 5 brothers and 5 sisters. Most of them made a reasonable living, except one sister married a man who had never done a stroke of work in his life.
They all survived then? They all survived
they did not survive.
Infancy?
They did not. Oh, in infancy, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, they didn't survive the war.
I mean, that wasn't always that
Isn't it?
common,
Their name was Simkovich.
Yeah, Simkovich.
Anna Simkovich.
Oh, right, yeah.
She was very short, and he was very tall. As I was really a boy, I seem to remember, he was very tall. Always wearing a coat, always busy doing this, walking here, walking there. Never did a stroke of work in his life, to the best of my knowledge, you believe. They had 2 children. I'm not sure whether they were 2. Oh, Robbie!
So I heard the door go.
Yeah.
The door go.
Robbie!
Rob, come on. It's a good boy. Good boy. He's only being a guy. Oh, it'll come out nicely on the tape, won't it?
I know. They had 2 boys, Siegfried and Max as well. They were tiny little boys. And when I say tiny, I used to go to school and carry one of them on my shoulders.
Oh, right.
One of my cousins, you know.
Yeah, Siegfried. So they gave them all these Wagnerian names.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Rob's, calm down.
Called Siegfried. Another one called Siegfried. Oh, yes. He wants to eat, doesn't he, darling?
He's just excited because he heard the noises.
Yeah.
I'll feed him a minute.
What else? The other story from when I was very small is I remember an old man with a beard, not a very long beard, coming to see me at home. I couldn't have been more than 3. Maybe 4. I certainly couldn't have been more than that. Teaching me to read Hebrew.
Oh, right, yes.
I could read Hebrew long before I could read German.
Before you could read German, yeah. Good heavens.
So, I don't know if you know anything about Hebrew. I mean, the consonants are all letters, and the vowels are all symbols that go above, below, beside.
Yeah, I know.
The old Jewish way of teaching Hebrew in those days was Aleph is the first letter in the alphabet. It hasn't a sound at all. And Kamatz in modern Hebrew, but Kumetz, as it was known in those days, is the O. Today it's pronounced as A in Israel, but in those days we used to call it as O.
Yeah.
And the old man used to say to me, Kumetz Aleph, that's O, makes O. Kuman's base, which is the second letter in Hebrew letter,
Yeah.
alphabet, makes Bo. The third one is called Gimel or G. Kuman's Gimel makes Go. And the fourth letter is called Dalet, D. Kuman's Dalet makes Do. So Aleph, O, base, Bo, Gimel, Go, Dalet, Do, and so it goes on. I can go through the whole alphabet if you want to, but I don't think there's any point in that.
No, it's all right. But I mean, you learnt it. Robbie, come here. But you learnt it.
Very, very early. Very,
yes. And could you learn it? I mean, it sounds quite difficult.
Yes.
Yeah.
If you have one letter at a time, you see it a good few times.
Yeah.
And then add various prayers to learn, what you say for food, what you say for drink, what you say when you finish eating, blessing after, grace after meal, when you go to the toilet, when you wash your hands, when it rains, when it snows.
Did you have to do all that?
Yeah, of course I did.
Did you?
I think I still remember them now.
Did your father do that? Did your parents do that?
I'm not quite sure, but he certainly insisted that I learn
That you
it.
did, yes, yeah.
Also, of course, Father was a good reader of Hebrew, but I don't think he could understand it. I don't think he understood, but he was a very fast reader.
Yeah.
And the reason I know this is because, the time a Jew has to read Hebrew very quickly is at the end of Yom Kippur. There's a final prayer to be said after Yom Kippur is over, before you can go home and eat.
Yeah,
That's called Ma'ariv. And my father was always called upon to say that prayer in front of the synagogue.
He could say it so quickly. Yeah.
A and B, when I got to be 13, boys have to wear phylacteries on the forehead and on the arm.
Yeah.
Now, in order to make sure that my father knew I had actually done my job, he used to pull them very, very tight, and ever so tight. So when I took them off, the marks were left on my arm.
Yeah.
But I only took 5 minutes to do the whole job.
Yeah.
And my father says to me, you know how fast I can pray, or daven is the Hebrew word for the Yiddish word for it. And I take 20 minutes to say the morning prayer. You can't do that in 5 minutes. No way. Go and do it again.
Oh my goodness. So they were quite orthodox then? They were quite religious?
Yeah, they were quite orthodox, yes. Yeah? Quite orthodox.
They kept everything, did they?
Oh, yes.
Kept all the separate meat and milk? And
meat and milk was separate. I mean, that meant everything from the dishes to the food to the washing up cloth and the washing up bowl even.
Yeah, yeah.
And not only that, but we had the same again for Pesach. So we had 4 sets.
Yeah. Oh, really?
Oh, yes.
4 sets?
4 sets. 2 milk and two meat ones.
Must be very difficult.
And the Pesach one we only used for a week in a year.
Must be very difficult for people who are not that well off to have all this. A, you've got to buy all the stuff, and B, you've got to keep it somewhere. Where do you keep it?
Well, it's not as much as you think it is, because if you put it away, it doesn't amount to all that much.
I suppose it was only 4 plates, wasn't it? I suppose.
No. You don't buy 4 plates. I mean, you buy half a dozen or a dozen plates.
Oh, right. Oh, that's what I mean.
Because you meet people, what have you.
Yeah.
But some of these are wedding presents, as well, apart from anything else.
Yeah.
However little money they had, people did give you presents.
Yes. Yeah. So did you have lots of family get-togethers? Did you have lots of your family living around you?
We had all the family living around me. I had. My father was one of 10, 9 of whom lived in Cologne.
Oh, right.
The other one, the odd one, who didn't live in Berlin, he had a cap shop. He sold caps.
Oh, yes, yeah.
The other 9 all lived in Cologne. That's my father's side. My mother was one of 6 of 2 mothers. Her own mother bore 4 children, 3 sisters, and a brother. The 3 sisters, you've met them when you went to America. Helene was my mother's oldest sister. Helen Pflanzer.
Yeah.
I think Pflanzer was a cousin. She married him.
Oh, right, yeah.
The next one was my mother. She was the middle one. And then there was one called Regina. She had 3 children. And the only one who survived of that family is Willy Rosenbaum.
Oh, yeah.
He's in New York.
Yeah.
And Helene Pflanzer, she had 2 children, a son and a daughter. The son died. The daughter's still alive. I had a letter from her only a few days ago.
Oh, right.
To say that her husband had died.
Oh, that's Celia something.
Celia and Benno, and Silverman, in fact.
Yes, yeah.
And I remember Benno Silverman was going to Haida with him in Cologne. We went to Feine.
So there were loads and loads of people around, loads of
There were
uncles
loads
and
and
aunts
loads
and
of
cousins.
family members. I had enough family to play with, although of course I had friends as well, you know. But I had...
Must have been like living in a shtetl, you know, sort of.
In a way, yes, because funny thing is when I was about 14 or 15, I smoked my first cigarette. And I went to the other side of Cologne, you know, way the other side of Cologne. And I took with me a handful of coffee beans, roasted coffee beans, and a few peppermints. So after smoking, I chewed the coffee beans and I sucked the peppermints to get rid of the breath of my foul breath, you know.
Yeah.
And it must have been 45 minutes walk from where we lived, you know.
Yeah.
When I got home, my father said, "You've been smoking, haven't you?" And somebody see me that way, that straight summer smoking, you know.
What, you went all by yourself, did you? And smoked in a
I
corner
once went with
somewhere?
Sir Abe, we both smoked together. But I mean, knowing it's Abe was 3 years younger than I.
Yes, yeah. Well, yeah. So going back to that. So would you all get together then for? You know, the
We didn't know.
festivities
No,
and-
we only got together was for big family occasions.
Oh right. Yeah.
But the sisters used to, well, the brothers and the sisters, every Saturday and Sunday night, my father used to play cards with members of my mother's family. He played cards with Helen's husband, Uncle Oscar, or Shia as he was known, Uncle Shia, and Willy Rosenbaum, and another cousin called Blau. So there was 4 of them playing cards. Played a game called 66, which is not known in England, which is an Eastern European Polish game, you know.
Yeah.
Used to play this every Saturday and Sunday night.
Yeah, so they brought all these things over from Poland then, did they?
Well, I mean, people, when they got to be old enough to play cards, you
Yes,
know, and this
yeah.
is one of the things people did.
Yeah, yeah. So this would be in the 20s, yeah? In the
This
late
would be in the 20s and the 30s as
30s,
well.
yeah, yeah.
Oh, yes.
So,
Because we were old enough eventually to be allowed to go home by ourselves from my uncle. Parents sent us home about 9 or 10 at the latest.
Yeah.
So Eve and I to go home, put ourselves to bed.
How old were you then?
Well, I must have been 12, 13, 14 maybe, and say it was 11, 12, 13, no, whatever, you know. We didn't much like it, but I couldn't do much about it.
What was there to do for young people?
Well, we used to go to various youth movements. After a while, first we had the thing, the family, we did every weekends we used to go to the park.
Yeah.
If the weather was at all halfway decent, you know.
Yeah.
And if there was money about, we
Play
used to go to
football
pictures
and-
occasionally, we used to go,
Yeah,
to-
pictures were quite popular, weren't they?
pictures were very popular. In fact, I
Hamburg.
say my parents were, my parents were religious, but in order to make life livable for them, Friday night after, we had the big meal, you know, then they actually used to go to pictures. But you're not supposed
Did
to have
they?
any
On
money.
Friday?
You're not supposed to have any money in your pocket.
Yeah.
So they bought the ticket before Shabbos.
But
And
surely,
with that, then they could do. They reckon they could go to
but
pictures.
surely they were causing other people to work, weren't they? Like the projectionists.
That
and-
made no difference. They would have worked anyway. They didn't work. And that was
Yeah.
after we had somebody come to the house to switch on the light off, or the
Yeah.
lights on and off.
Yeah.
A Shabbos goy.
Yeah.
We had that. People they came to did work for us, but that didn't seem to matter.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, how funny. Well, I suppose it made life bearable, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Otherwise, it would have been
Yes.
sort of totally unbearable. So, how did you feel when Zave came along?
I was very jealous, I think, from what I remember. I'm told that I painted a moustache on his lips with a fire iron.
With a fire iron?
Yeah,
You got
well, it was cold, obviously.
Oh, right. I was going to say it wasn't hot, was it?
But it could have been very dangerous anyway, you know.
Well, yeah, he could have poked his eye out or something. But
Yeah,
yeah, well, I suppose it was quite a sweet thing to
I
do, wasn't it?
I was jealous. I mean, we were told, don't forget, we were told that if you put sugar on the windowsill, if it's lump sugar, you're going to have a brother.
Yeah.
And if it's, what's the opposite?
What, sort of just like granulated sugar?
Granulated
Yeah,
sugar,
loose-
you
loose.
get a sister.
Oh, right. So what did you put?
I must have put a lump sugar, a lump there because I had a brother.
Well, you must have done. But did you want a brother, or did you not want any?
I didn't know.
How did
I
they
was told you're
tell
having
you?
a brother, you know.
How did they tell you that there was a baby on the way?
Well, the Klapperstore, the stork comes and brings it.
Oh, right. Yeah. Yeah.
The store comes with bricks.
Oh,
And
dear.
eventually, when I found out what it was, there was not really just my mother wouldn't do a thing like that. No way.
Oh yes, yeah, of course, yeah. So when did you become reconciled to him?
To say, for quite
Yeah.
soon.
Yeah.
Quite
I
soon.
mean, it must have been quite nice having a,
Oh yes, I mean, all right, he was 2 years younger, and I mean, it made a difference that those.
Oh yes,
that-
yeah.
But he was almost a very popular guy, so
Yes.
much more popular than I was. So he always had many more friends than I did.
Did he?
And I remember him going to school, being collected in the morning by 10 to 12 girls every morning. He used to take
Really?
him to school.
Oh my goodness.
Used to walk him to school, yes. By that time I was going to work already.
Oh right, yes. Oh, so he was a teenager then. He was about.
Right. He
13.
finished going to school at 14, the same as I did.
Oh, did he? Oh,
Yes.
right. Was that general or was that?
That was if you couldn't afford to pay high school, that's when you finished school at 14.
Oh
We
right.
started at 6 and we finished at 14.
Oh right. It wasn't to do with the sort of political situation at the
No.
time.
That was usually it's like council school, like Michael's school.
Yeah, but then wouldn't you then go on to gymnasium or whatever?
Yes, if you passed the examination, and B, if you could pay for it.
Yeah.
And the fact that there was payments to be made or to be had, or scholarships to be had, something I only ever came across in England. I think there must have been available in Germany, but whether they were available to us as foreigners, I honestly
Yes.
don't know.
Yeah.
Because even though I was born in Germany, I was
Yeah.
a foreigner all my life in Germany.
Yes.
I was
Yeah.
never German.
Yeah.
I never felt German.
No?
I never felt German.
Oh, funny.
Never felt German.
Yeah.
And I mean, from when I was 12 or 13, I had to carry a passport. I was carrying a passport in my pocket all the time. When I was 12. So I mean, even if I'd wanted to be a German, by that
Yes.
time, of course, Hitler was in.
Yes. Yeah. Well, he came into power in about 33.
33. Hitler came to power in
Yes.
33.
Yeah.
But I mean, even then, I had just. I was never a foreign. I was never a German. I was never accepted as a German. Even the German Jews. My teacher in school, he differentiated between those boys of German parents and those of Polish parents, or Russian parents, or for that matter.
Differentiated how? Rob, come here.
Where we didn't get the best.
Oh
treatment.
right, so it was a sort of bad differentiation.
Yes,
Kind
oh,
of,
yes.
no,
Oh, yes.
come on, get down. That's very strange, isn't it? And he was
Yeah.
Jewish himself, the teacher.
And, oh yes. All
You
the
went to a
all the
Jewish.
teachers are Jewish.
Yeah. Oh God, so there was
What's
quite,
the matter, Robbie?
quite a bit of prejudice then.
Yes. No, there was quite a bit.
Yeah.
I
Rob.
mean, there was quite some feeling. I mean, they called us Polacks,
Yeah.
and we called them Yekkes.
And it wasn't a good feeling.
It wasn't a good thing. I mean, Mum and I would never have got to know in Germany.
Would you not? No.
But maybe in the youth movement, but I mean,
Yeah.
under normal circumstances.
So it was a kind of class thing. The Poles were the
No, they weren't necessarily.
Lowest
I mean,
of the low.
there were wealthy Poles and there were poor Germans.
yes, yeah.
It wasn't only, well, obviously, the chances are that if you were born there and you had parents who already were established there, the chances are you had more chance of being higher up financially than if you were an immigrant yourself, or came from immigrant parents who couldn't or wouldn't ever speak German properly or even start a business or whatever.
Yes, yeah.
After all, my grandfather produced 10 children. Each one had to have his own little business,
Yes, yeah. So the money must have.
Well, they didn't all do
had to
so because, I mean,
stretch.
one or two of the uncles, they found girls who had money and they spent their money, apparently. They're no longer alive. I won't even name them,
What? I don't even know if you'd know that. So what were the rules about married women's property? Because it wouldn't, here, I think it was only.
I wouldn't know. I mean, it was always ours in my family anyway.
Yeah. No, I mean, if they married rich women, would the property come to them or the money come to them?
Or they would be
And
able
then-
to dispose of it, shall we say,
What about the girls?
Right.
Did they make good marriages?
I don't know, ask your
Don't know.
mother.
No, I mean your female relatives, your
Oh,
cousins and what have you.
but they all stayed together. None of them got divorced.
Yeah, right.
I wish they wouldn't do that.
We'd better stop this now and put some veggies on. Put it on pause.
In the
Right.
same way that you could never know how well we off or how badly off we were when you were a child, nor did I. All I can tell you is that we did have a maid all the time, a living maid.
Did you?
When I certainly was a child. Oh,
I didn't
yes.
realise you had a maid. Ah.
After we moved away from that 2 or 3 rooms that my parents had, when things got a bit easier, in as much as homes became available, we moved to a nice large flat in a street called Concordia Straße.
So your father did quite well out of the rag and bone business.
Whether he did well, I like a child, I don't know. I know we didn't seem to be short of anything.
But he must have done if you moved into unless property was very cheap in Germany.
Well, people lived in flats. They didn't live in houses.
Yeah, yeah.
So it was possible for people to earn sufficient.
But also to have a maid was that unusual?
Maid would have been very cheap.
Yeah.
Maid would have been very cheap.
And what would she have been? Like a sort of little
She
girl
could
up
have been a
from the
farm
country?
girl,
Yeah.
a peasant girl, because many of the farmers, peasants, used to come into town, search out Jewish families for the maids for their girls to go into service there. They had to work hard, but at least they weren't treated like animals.
Yes. Yeah. So was your was your mother kind to the maid? Would they eat with you?
But they stayed with us for some time, until they got married, so couldn't have been that bad.
And would they eat with you, like a daughter of the family, or would they?
No. They'd eat in the kitchen. They wouldn't eat with us. They ate the same food, but they ate by themselves in the kitchen.
Yeah.
If you ask you can't now, but if you were to have asked your mother when she went into service, which she did in 1936, once or twice she ate with the family, who had been friends of her mother.
Yes. Yeah.
But
why did she go into service? Actually, perhaps you know that. Do you know
why? Why, Mum?
Yeah.
Because Opa wouldn't let her go to high school, and he wanted money from her. She earned flumpence, and he wanted at least half of the flumpence.
What a shame, isn't it? What a shame.
Yeah.
It's strange, isn't it? Because it didn't sound as though they were very short either.
Oh yes, they were short.
Yeah.
They lived very comfortably. They had a lovely flat, but that was paid for by Opa's singing.
Yeah.
The community paid enough money to pay the rent, so the rent was paid for. They didn't have to worry about that.
Right.
But he didn't do. Well, for some time he did earn enough. For sometimes he didn't earn enough. But the rent was always paid for by his singing.
Yeah. Now, in your parents' case, did your mother work as well?
My mother, not early on. Later on, when things were hard, she worked. But when my father had the rag and bone place, she didn't work. She used to come down occasionally to the rag and bone place, but only just to speak to him, to see what was going on, and possibly to criticize. I don't know, because she did criticize sometimes, but she did not.
Well, she'd tell him how to run the business.
Well, yes.
So when did you start going to school?
When I was
At 6.
When I was 6 years old in 1927.
Did you get any education before that? Did you go to kindergarten?
I went to kindergarten, but that wasn't education. That was just taken care of.
To get you out of the way.
Yeah. In fact, when we were in Düsseldorf, I must have been about 3 or 4. The nearest kindergarten to us was in a church. And I went to this kindergarten. My mother sent me there, and first thing they showed us how to make the cross with holy water. And I came home to my mother, and that was the only time I ever went there. And I went back second time. I went a second day.
But didn't she realise that?
No, she didn't. She said it was kindergarten,
Yes, yeah.
No.
So where did the other little Jewish boys go and girls?
Well, there was over the holidays there was some places where Jewish kids could go, and there's some bed. I think Tamar's got a picture of me in the kindergarten playing Ring a Ring of Roses in a big circle, and I'm not quite sure whether I was wet in front or not. I couldn't say. I wet myself quite a bit for a while. Well, Michael probably got it from me. He did for a while too.
Oh dear. So what did you learn when you went to school? for the first time.
We didn't learn anything. When I went to school,
Yeah.
well, whatever kids in school learn here, German obviously, but I'd learned Hebrew before then.
Yeah. So
I
you
could
really.
read Hebrew before I could read German.
Yeah. But were you writing it or?
No, just
didn't
reading.
Have to write it. Yeah.
Just reading. Don't forget, prayer books are all printed,
Mm.
and the writing I learned later on.
So you at school you would learn German and arithmetic and.
Whatever is to be learned, geography, nature study. We went out traipsing occasionally,
What, on sort of nature trips?
Yeah,
Mm.
but we did go to school Monday to Friday, not on Saturday, but on Sunday morning.
Oh.
Oh, mind you, that was not in, sorry, not in Düsseldorf. I went to school Monday to Friday, and I didn't go to school on Saturday, because I was Jewish. In fact, whenever there was prayers or whatever, I didn't go there.
Oh, right.
And when I went to Cologne, there was a Jewish school. We went to school from Monday to Friday, and on Sunday morning.
When did you move to Cologne?
I was 9, possibly 10. So that means either 30 or 31.
But before that, you were in Düsseldorf until then. And,
Yeah.
And Zave must have been born there.
He was born in Düsseldorf, yes. He wasn't a terribly good scholar at the very beginning. But later on he was all right. He was never left behind, nor was I. But I was in the top half of the class, and Zave was more in the middle.
Yeah. But he would have been 2 years below you, yeah?
Well, obviously, yes.
Yeah.
2 years after me.
No, because I mean, in some village schools in England, especially around that time, I would think
This is a major town,
all
Cologne,
the children
darling.
were educated together. Yeah, but how?
No. Major. There were 20,000 Jews in Cologne, darling.
Yeah.
We had a primary school.
So was the school in Düsseldorf? Was it a mixed religion school or a?
Yeah, that was a state school.
Yeah.
But in Cologne, we had a state school for Jewish boys, Jewish kids, not boys only. And there was also a high school, grammar school, a Jewish one.
So what was there anti-Semitism at school?
In Düsseldorf?
Yeah.
Not to my knowledge, darling. I can't recall that. I can't recall.
No, because there was in my school. In my primary school there was.
No, I can't recall, darling. All I know is the very first teacher we ever had was a Mr. Herr Rose. And he was the nicest, kindest, most attentive teacher I ever had in my life.
Really?
Very first year. He was terrific. I remember him to this day, and that's now 70 years later.
Yeah. No, they're very important, those first teachers, aren't they?
And I didn't mind learning. I wasn't a bad student. It would appear that at some stage my arithmetic wasn't all that clever. It was reasonable, but not all that wonderful. And we had visitors. Whereas my father's brothers, 2 of his brothers, came to visit us. And they sort of couldn't understand that I couldn't work out the arithmetic. And they sort of chided me in a way.
That's surprising.
Made fun of me. Yes, in a way. And from then on, I learned. I wasn't bad at arithmetic.
Oh, right.
I never did good at grammar, but arithmetic I wasn't bad.
How funny. And it was stemmed from then, did it?
Yeah.
Being told off. Yes, yeah.
Wasn't so much told off, the stuff. They didn't even intimidate either. They just made me feel uncomfortable.
Yes, yeah. It hadn't been working.
So, in fact, one of them, I'm not quite sure, I think one of them was Jossel.
Oh, really?
I think so.
Yeah. And how did you get on with Zave at this period? I mean, were you always fighting? Or
With whom, Zave?
Yeah.
No, we fought occasionally. I remember at one time, not when we were very little, when we were bigger, I think from 11 to 13, I was 13, he was 11, we had some bitter fights there. So really bitter fights.
Oh, really?
Fisticuffs, yeah. But that's how it was.
What happened if your parents caught you at it? Or did you always make sure that
but we
they
didn't fight at home. We fought we went to a kindergarten after school.
Yeah.
And there we fought.
Yeah. Oh, really?
Yeah.
What, sort of see you outside later?
No, we just fought there and we were separated,
Yeah. Oh, what was it about, or can't you remember?
God knows what. wasn't only once, it was a few times, you know.
Yes.
And then it stopped.
Well, it couldn't have been about girls and things. You'd
No,
been too young
we
for
weren't
that.
interested in girls, but I was 13 and he was 11. No, I mean, he had too many girls call for him every morning. Now, mind you, that was
Yes.
later. When I started to work,
Yeah.
also even when I went away on Akshara, came home for a visit.
Yeah.
And I say 6 to 10 girls used to call for him every day to go to school.
Oh dear, yeah. Charisma and all that.
I don't know whether charisma or good looks or whatever, you know, but he certainly had.
Well, I think he probably knew how to talk to the girls, didn't he? Knew how to charm them.
I don't even think he did, quite honestly. I think he was quite completely innocent on his part.
Yes, yeah. Oh,
But he would never think badly of anybody anyway.
no. That's right.
Well,
So-
after a little while, when I first started to work, I don't think my father gave me any pocket money, but I had tips, and I used to share the tips with him. He used to give him.
Yeah.
But it was not enough to go to pictures even with, you know.
Yes, yeah. It's just a bit of money for sweets or something.
I give him 5, 10, 15, 10 pfennigs usually.
So what did you eat? What was your, you know,
Well, we ate kosher, of course.
Yeah.
Strictly kosher. That meant a complete and strict division between milk and meat.
yeah. So would it be the same thing every Monday, Tuesday?
No, Friday, Saturday would be the same thing.
Yeah. What was that?
It used to be fish, carp, freshwater fish, boiled and in its own jelly. It would be noodle soup, chicken noodle soup. My mother had made the noodles, she had made the chicken soup and everything.
She made the noodles herself?
She made the noodles herself. There was nothing on that table that she hadn't done herself. She baked the challah,
Really? Yeah.
she baked the cake,
Yeah.
and then there was no vegetables on the Saturday. We had chicken noodle soup, then we had chicken and we had some apple comfort or something like that.
Yes,
More often,
yeah.
you know, that was, and the same thing again
So it was,
on the Saturday after coming home from shul.
yeah. So it was gefilte fish.
Well, you would call it gefilte fish, but gefilte fish means filled, stuffed fish.
Oh, right, yes. Yeah.
That's what they would be.
So
There
it was
would
like
be fish,
minced
actual
or-
fish stuffed
yeah.
with other fish,
And no
with minced
vegetables.
fish.
That's funny, isn't it?
Not on Shabbos.
Oh, really? No vegetables on Shabbos?
No, not on Shabbos.
Why was that? 'Cause
I don't know, that's how the meal was, you know. You didn't question
no.
the meal that was put in front of you. So
No.
if he created murders, you wouldn't eat it. You
Oh,
wouldn't eat
really?
the fish, you wouldn't eat the chicken.
Why?
Tama things because you saw the animals being killed.
Oh, right. Yeah, it could have been.
My mother, she used to kill the fish.
Did she? Well, you'd buy them live from the market.
Not the market, you went to fish shop. There were big tanks, and she said,
Oh, right.
that's the one I want. In go the net, out come the carp,
Oh, I see.
and she'd take it home.
Yeah.
He asked her, do I hit it on? He said, no. Took it home, put it in the bath until she was ready to cook it.
Yeah.
Well, sometimes we had a bath, but most of the time we just had a sort of metal bath, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
Sat in there, swam in there. Then she took it out, and then she cut it up. And the chickens, because we didn't have any meat, it
Yeah.
was very difficult to get meat. And it wasn't allowed to buy you couldn't buy any kosher meat. Slaughtering was not allowed. So we used to have a shochet come Thursday night, about 10 o'clock at night,
Oh, right.
and he'd kill 2 chickens.
Yeah,
Live chickens, he'd kill them. So mother pulled the feathers out
yeah,
and opened the chicken, did everything.
yeah.
And that's what we had mostly for the week. We had also a bit of fish, fried and otherwise.
Yeah. God, she must have been tough, mustn't she? Because
Oh, yes.
I don't think I could have done that.
Well, if everybody
Maybe-
else did it, you did it too. And my mother told me when she got married, she couldn't boil water.
Really?
Yeah.
Wasn't she
In
taught?
other words, she could not cook at all at all.
Wasn't she taught by her mother?
No, she lost her mother very early.
Oh, did she?
And she had a stepmother who she not get on well
Oh,
with.
right.
And that must be the reason why she left for Germany very early.
Right.
Her older sister Helen was married already and lived in Cologne.
Yeah.
And she went to stay with Helen.
Oh, I see.
or Helena as she was.
What did her mother die of?
I don't know, darling. I think she was only 12 or 13 when her mother died. In Poland, many
Yeah.
people died of. That was
Well,
very unhygienic.
You said earlier that they were starving. I mean,
Who? Not my mother's side.
oh.
I'm not sure they're starving. My mother's family had a grocery shop, so they didn't starve. They had grocers.
Yeah, yeah. But they did
Here's your
also-
brother.
Yeah.
Your younger brother. Hi, Michael.
Hello, young Michael. Gosh, what time did you call this? 8:25. And this is all being recorded.
How are you?
All right, how are you?
Finished? Or it's all being recorded?
I was going to ask you about what you remembered about politics. In other words,
What?
there were so many changes taking place in Germany when you were growing up.
Yeah.
Um,
No, they weren't, darling. When I was growing up, Hitler came to power when I was 12 years of age.
Yeah. But so
And
how
there were
much,
no
but how
other-
much were you aware of what was,
Very much so.
of his politics? So
Well, we were very fully aware of that. Hitler was anti-Semitic,
yeah.
and that would be in trouble.
Did he make it quite obvious,
From the very beginning, because within a month of... is this being taped?
Yeah.
Within a month of him taking power, they had a boycott day, and all the Jewish shops were boycotted. And an SA man standing in front of each shop. In some instances, the people had been officers in the army who came out wearing their medals and wearing their sword.
Yeah.
But by and large, it was a day when all the Jewish shops were boycotted. It was a Saturday, I think.
And what excuse did he give for
None at all. Just
doing that?
Jews were
How could he?
bad, wicked, whatever. They were up for themselves, and they were going down to do down Germany. And the Jews ought not to consider themselves too clever, because their day will come. This is from the very beginning, even before he came to power.
Really?
Oh,
So
yes.
He was like sort of Enoch Powell, but.
Oh, no. This was Jews, and I think gypsies as well a bit, but mostly Jews.
Yeah. Must have been very frightening.
Yes, that said something, it was frightening at times. I mean, it wasn't overpowering at the very beginning, but quite early on, a lot of German Jewish doctors and the people who were literate, the people who were at the higher ranges committed suicide, quite a few,
Well, right at the beginning,
quite early on, at 33.
you could see what was coming.
Yeah. Yes.
It's terrible.
Yeah. Yes. Couldn't give you quantities, I couldn't give you numbers.